Welcome to Apex for Youth Associate Board's first virtual fundraiser of the year, Trailblazers, Women at the Forefront. My name is Kristen Hom.
And I'm Sabrina Shi, and we are both so excited to welcome you and thank you for taking the time to support Apex for Youth.
Apex for Youth is an organization that delivers possibilities to underdeserved Asian and immigrant youth from low-income families in New York City. We recruit working professionals to volunteer and become positive role models who inspire youth to expand their horizons and envision what is possible for their lives. Through mentoring and educational programs that serve students from 1st to 12th grade, Apex volunteers guide and support youth to become confident, be ready for college, and give back to the community.
There are almost 140,000 Asian students in the public school system in New York City, which is more than all the students in Boston and San Francisco combined. 1 in 4 Asian students live in homes where no one over 14 speaks English. 1 in 2 is born into poverty, and 1 in 4 doesn't graduate on time or at all. Despite Asians being 13% of New York City's population, less than 1% of foundation and government funding goes to charities focused on the Asian community. Due to COVID, there has been a 110% increase in Asian American deaths in New York State in 2020 compared to 2015 to 2019. These stellar numbers are why Apex for Youth is important and needs to exist so that Asian youth are given a chance to succeed.
I started volunteering with Apex as a middle school mentor and now as a high school mentor. Going into my 4th year as a volunteer and my 2nd year on the associate board, I have felt truly inspired by this organization and have met so many amazing people along the way, whether it be fellow volunteers, staff, and most importantly, the kids. I joined Apex to give back to the Asian and immigrant community and be a resource to help my mentee feel more confident, explore their passions, and let her know someone is always in her corner.
I volunteered as a high school mentor for the past 3 years and an associate board member for the past 2. I joined Apex to provide the support to Asian youth that I wish I had when I was growing up. Apex spends time to dive not only in assisting in academics, but also ensuring that mental health and struggles are spoken about, addressed, and normalized within our youth's lives. As an LGBTQ person, I wanted to make sure our Apex youth had visibility into somebody who was part of the Asian community and the LGBTQ community. Apex ensures that diversity is embraced and welcomed, and that is truly why I love this organization.
In honor of Women's Month coming up, we wanted to create a fundraiser centered on Asian women achievements and highlight and honor those who have truly trailblazed their way through unique paths and industries. We are fortunate today to have Ali Maki, Christine Ha, and Helen Lowe join us to share their personal experiences and thoughts as Asian female trailblazers. We are also grateful to partner and collab with Asian American Girl Club around a Trailblazers shirt designed by Jeanette Liao for this event, which you can purchase at the AAGC website. AAGC is an apparel company set to redefine what it means to be a modern Asian American woman. All proceeds of this shirt will go directly to Apex and supporting the youth.
We hope our event helps inspire you to be a stronger advocate for female voices within our community and continue to be an ally for all social justice stances. We acknowledge that there's still ways to go, but from the Apex family, we thank you for your support today and every day. If you are interested in joining the Apex family as a volunteer or a donor, feel free to reach out to us directly through our website at apexforyouth.org. Thank you again, and please give a warm welcome to our moderator, Joanne Park. Joanne Park is an award-winning content strategist who has experience in building digital-first brands at Legacy Networks. She is currently the Director of Audience Development at Headspace, tasked with creating compelling content that strives to improve the health and happiness of the world. Her prior work includes MTV's Always On and CNN's Great Big Story. Outside of work, Joanne co-hosts $6.99 per pound, a New York-based podcast serving up hot takes from industry leaders from a wide variety of fields. Now to you, Joanne.
Hey, everyone. Oh my gosh. Welcome. Thank you, Sabrina and Kristen. I just need to start off and say they've poured their hearts into this event, and I'm so grateful and honored to be a part of it. So thank you. And we also need to thank our sponsor who made this event possible: Lakewood Capital, Kramer Levin, General Atlantic, City Private Bank, Revit Capital, Ardea, Zana, Facebook, Braze. Thanks to you guys and the audience, we've raised over $50,000 for Apex for Youth, which is so amazing. Claps. I know it's virtual and you can't really hear the claps, but all the clapping vibes, all the positive vibes for everyone who made today possible. And we also have to shout out Asian American Girls Club again for donating Trailblazer t-shirts designed by the Janet Liao for raffle, and Low End Sons. They've actually donated 2 travel bags for the raffle as well. Logistics on the side. Winners will be randomly selected and connected via email after the event, so keep an eye out. We'll be accepting Q&A, live questions from the audience, so please submit the questions in the chat. We'll be keeping an eye out and picking them so we can answer them throughout the panel. So without further ado, the moment you've all been waiting for, I want to welcome our amazing panelists. Ali Maki is a Japanese-American actress. You may have heard her voice in Toy Story 4 as a spunky and lovable Giggle McDimples. Fun fact, she was actually the first Asian American woman in a lead role in Toy Story universe. So she's already making history. We're part of history, you guys. She was also in Cloak and Dagger, Dear White People, love that show, and Wrecked. And again, she's the co-founder of Asian American Girls Club, the incredible clothing brand we have to thank for the amazing Trailblazer t-shirts for the event. I'm waiting for mine patiently in the mail. Thank you so much, Ali, for making that happen. And next, we have Christine Ha. Her story shook the nation and my heart and captured our hearts when she competed as the first blind contestant on the show MasterChef, and wowed the world when she casually won the whole darn show. Her first cookbook, Recipes from My Home Kitchen, was a New York Times bestseller. She's just continued on as this culinary superstar, opening award-winning restaurants, plural, hosting and judging cooking shows, all the while continuing her passion for creative writing. Another fun fact, I'm an avid subscriber of her YouTube channels. And if you want to see Christine power through the spicy ramen challenge, please tune in and let us know what you think. And last but not least, the matriarch, the self-proclaimed chief grandma officer and founder of Low End Sons, Helen Lowe, is joining us today. She started Low End Sons with her 2 sons, Jan and Derek, in her mid-60s. And instead of saying my own bio, I'm actually going to steal the bio her sons wrote up about Helen in the untold story of Helen Lowe, available on the Low End Sons website. I'm going to give it a shot, and you guys can be shocked. According to them, our Helen fled the Civil War, almost became a nun. Okay, maybe we should talk about that later. Immigrated to Alabama, fought for social justice, graduated with a PhD, yeah, we're still going, and ultimately became a master of reinventing her career. Now that's a bio, and you guys know why I couldn't just come up with my own. That was so epic, right? But we're all so lucky to have these 3 ladies in our panel today. I know a lot of mentees are tuning in, and they want to know what it takes to be a trailblazer. So thank you, all of you, for being here. I want to kick off the conversation actually with you, Helen. Because your bio was so prolific. I really love the Low End Sons origin story, and I'd love to hear from your own words how the brand came to be, and if you can enlighten the audience with that story, that'd be amazing to kick us off.
Okay, Low End Sons actually started with a personal need of mine. That doesn't always translate into a business. We had just come back from 5 years in Taiwan. As you know, I reinvent myself everywhere I go. And when we came back to the States and I was in Charlottesville, and I said, I am tired of reinventing myself. I'm just going to retire. And I thought I would be traveling with my husband. He was an astronomer, and in his line of work, he traveled a lot. So I thought I would travel with him, but traveling with him was not easy because he would not check in baggage, even though he would go on a 2-week trip. Now, for a woman, that's quite a challenge, right? Can you imagine going on a trip for 2 weeks with only carry-on? And at that time, we had, all these new regulations. You're only allowed to carry one roller and a companion bag, whether it's a purse, whatever the size. And I couldn't figure out how to do it because there was no companion bag that was nice looking. I mean, you can go to a sports store and find light baggage. See, the issue at that time was I had back issues. I had back problems, and I need to travel light. So I couldn't really travel with heavy things. So I was able to find clothing and shoes that were light and good looking, but I couldn't find a bag. And I actually started out with my son helping me to come up with a blog, which was called Light and Smart. And, I thought since I was spending so much time finding these products, I thought I should share it. So a blog was a good way to share, but I couldn't really maintain it. And he didn't want to help me further. So
like, Mom, stop.
Right, exactly. There was no money in it. So, and I told him, I said, I really need to find this bag. And he didn't know what I was talking about. So I took him to the store. You go to luggage section and you can find these bags. They're light, but they're luggage. You can put it over your roller, but they're luggage. When you get to your destination, you can't take that bag around. Took him to the purse section, and you can find big purses, but it's just a black hole inside. You can't really put too much stuff in, and there was no sleeve in the bag that will fit over the roller fit over the handle of the roller. So they realized that there was a need, and but it was actually my need. It wasn't enough. So my son Jan says, well, why don't you talk to your friends and see what they think? And I said, none of my friends are as vain as I am. I really wanted that bag to look like a purse. So when you get to your destination, you can carry it around and go to a meeting. So he actually did call people he knew, his generation. And it was amazing that his findings were very similar to what I need. So that was an insight that we had, that there could be a white spot. There could be a market for that.
Absolutely.
And that's how it started, So this bag that we developed way back then, which is called the OG. And there's a story with his name OG. I didn't know what OG meant. But
I was going to say, did you know what that meant?
I just thought it was overnight gym bag. So it's OG. And then they laughed. They laughed because I didn't know what OG meant.
Oh my gosh, that is hilarious. Oh my gosh.
That bag is still one of our best sellers because it does meet the need of, it was really targeted towards professional women who would travel a lot for business, get to the destination and just take that bag as if it were a briefcase. Yeah. So that's how it started for us.
That's amazing. And, Helen, I actually, told my mom about your story too, because, she's in her mid 50s and she has so many amazing ideas, but she's always like, no, it's like too late. Like, it's too late for me. And I'm just like, look at Helen. Oh my gosh, your fearlessness. And I know, listening to your interview with your sons, that sometimes you had to put, yourself in the back burner while you raise, 2 kids and supporting your husband. And we just wanted to know what advice would you give my mom and, and any women at any age who's dealing with these choices? How did you navigate that?
Well, I think the first thing is, if you have ideas, you want to make sure those ideas can translate into products that are marketable. So it's not something that you need, Like it started out with a personal need of mine, but we actually did some market research. I mean, my son actually went to the airport and looked at how women carry their bags.
Yeah.
And he saw, like, you know, the purse would be swirling around the handle of the roller. So there really was no bag like that. And then he also talked to people. So that's the first thing you have to do, to make sure that there is a need beyond your very own, that there is a white spot in the market. And once you've identified that, then go for it. Be persistent. It's tough. You know, you have to be able to, you have to be able to sort of, in Cantonese, is ngaya, suffer.
Oh.
Suffer through the beginning, you know. You're not going to make big money right away. It takes time, and you have to do a lot of work. So, I mean, if you find that there is a market for an idea of yours, go for it, and don't give up easily.
Yeah, thank you so much, Helen. That's amazing advice. And you know, we have another founder in the house who's Ali, who also founded an apparel brand on top of, you know, acting and all her amazing roles. And I wanted to hear from you, Ali. What inspired you to start your brand? And are some of the stories that Helen's talking about, that white space, you know, how is that resonating with you?
Yeah. Oh, it's so awesome to hear your story, Helen. It's incredible. You're just blazing a trail your whole life, and it's so awesome to hear. So thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I mean, Asian Man Girl Club was really based upon my own personal journey, kind of in the entertainment industry. I mean, I moved out here when I was 14. I grew up in a small town in Seattle where there wasn't many Asian Americans, and I remember that I was just the girl that was in every single activity. My mom put me in dance and singing, brownies, tap dance, softball. I mean, literally every club I could be in, I was in. And I remember being in all of these after school activities and just thinking, for some reason, I just didn't feel included. And I would quit all of them because of that. And I couldn't really find my thing. And looking back, I realized that it wasn't really that I was a quitter. It was more so that I felt sad that a club, something that's designed to be inclusive, really felt exclusive for me. And now as an adult, I think it really is because I didn't see other people that looked like me. I didn't see other Asian American women, you know, in these activities, doing things with me, making it feel like it was possible. So I really wanted to kind of redefine that narrative of what a club could be and what it could feel like and what it could be like. And so it kind of has this little throwbacky feel with AAGC, and I love that because it is so multi-generational. I mean, you could be 6 years old, or you could be, you know, 7 years old, and still, you know, like uniting with all of these amazing women. So that's kind of the general gist of how it started.
Oh my gosh, I love that story. And you know, as an Asian American girl myself, I remember seeing this on Instagram and seeing, you know, your friends in the industry, like Olivia Munn, like all these supporters, like sporting it. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. I wish I had this when I was a little younger, to be like, hey, being Asian American is so cool. And look at all these people sporting that look. And I think that's so amazing, considering that you've been in this industry where, you know, it's known to be, you know, relying on certain stereotypes. And I know that you've been in the industry for a long time, even before the whole Crazy Rich Asians and this huge wave of Asian American content has now been kind of popular or trendy. I would love for you to expand on just your experience and how it was like in person, going through that in Hollywood.
Yeah, I have a very unique perspective in that I did start when I was so young. So I was able to kind of see, you know, before representation and then moving into what it is now, and we're still growing and changing. But I think the thing that really resonated with me is that, you know, when you're put inside of a box, you know, the roles that I was going out for were really like, basically they're saying you can only be the sidekick, you're the assistant, or you love math, or you love kung fu, or you have two lines, right? And And as a child, I was like very excited. I was like, oh, I could totally do all that, and putting on all the hat and glasses and all the things. And like, I can do all this, I'm the homework girl. So I was like, just get it done and knock them out of the park. And I didn't realize until I was an adult, like kind of how damaging that was to my own personal psyche of constantly just, if you're only seen as the sidekick, you're only seen as where your story doesn't really matter. It doesn't revolve around you. It really bled into my personal life of really just like always feeling that I was less than or feeling secondary. So I think the most beautiful thing about what's happening now is we're seeing, us walk into roles where we are the leading character, and it doesn't matter that we're Asian American or not, and I think that's very important. And I think especially with Asian American Girl Club, it's so important for me to, I'm in my 30s now, and I'm just feeling these feelings of self-worth and confidence and shattering these kind of glass ceilings of what I know I can accomplish. And if we can give that to girls at a much younger age, at 6, 7, 8 years of what they can accomplish, it's like we're just going to have a bunch of superheroes out there. So, it's really exciting, and it's been a long journey, but we're on the right track now.
Yeah. No, for sure. And I'm sure you get such, fun notes on the Asian American Girls Club accounts. Do you have any that you were really memorable to you, where you're like, oh my gosh, like people are feeling seen? Like this is exactly how I wanted them to feel?
I mean, Joette, all the time. And I literally just cry every day because we get them all the time. And really, when I started it was 10:30 at night on a Wednesday, and I had no idea what it was going to be. I just released like a logo. And the next morning, our inbox was flooded with girls like writing like college style dissertations about what meant to them and that they'd never been seen in this way. And, so from that point, I was like, wow, this means a lot to people, to more than just me. There's such a shared connectivity here. So yes, all the time, especially ones for Giggle McDimples. I mean, when I see like little girls dress up as her, they like, of course I could be a cop. Like, why wouldn't I? That's really incredible. Those are like moments that could change people's lives forever.
Yeah. Oh, that's so awesome. And I think all of your stories are so inspiring. And, speaking of like rising above stereotypes and shattering bamboo and glass ceilings, I mean, Christine, I remember the first time I ever saw Christine was like a viral video. And, it's this iconic scene. I'm sure a lot of you guys seen it, where they're like, are you actually blind? And you're just like, yeah, I am. And you just had this quiet confidence and this fire. And when you won the whole thing, I just know so many people were inspired by you. But, obviously we're seeing it happen, but you're the one who experienced it. And I just wanted to know, like, you went from, like a home chef to competing in this stage. Like, can you just give us a little bit of a taste of what that was like at that time?
Sure. At the time, I was actually in grad school getting my degree in creative writing. So, and I'm naturally an introvert. So television wasn't really something that was ever something I wanted to aspire to. But I did love cooking, and I got into cooking because when I was studying my undergraduate, and I really missed home because I was, I moved out of the dorms into a small apartment, and I missed the foods of my youth, the stuff that I grew up eating that my mom cooked. And my mom actually died when I was younger and never taught me how to cook, never left a recipe. So I found myself in my early 20s missing the foods that she used to cook. So I decided to teach myself in college, partially out of necessity. And then just because, I had to feed myself and I missed the food. And then I wanted to feed my friends and my roommates. And then as I started learning how to cook, my love for it grew. And I think it kind of stems from the idea or my ability to create something with my own two hands and serve it to other people and have them enjoy something that I created. And that kind of goes hand in hand with creative writing as well. As I've learned now, looking back in hindsight, that I love to create. So cooking was really only a hobby throughout my 20s. And that was actually coincided with the same time that I began to lose my vision due to an autoimmune condition. So my optic nerves atrophied, and then I gradually lost my vision throughout my 20s. And each time my vision would decrease to a new base level, I would have to kind of reteach myself how to do certain things in the kitchen, because I was just having to rely less and less on my eyesight. But I kept at it because I'm a very independent person. Since I lost my mom when I was young, I grew up as an only child. So I think being independent was important to me. So I knew that, I lived alone at the time throughout my vision loss, and I figured I still had to feed myself. So I just kept at it, found new ways to adapt in the kitchen. And then my friends and family encouraged me to audition for MasterChef when I was in grad school. And, I thought it would just be kind of a funny thing to do, because I thought it would be, it would stem my creative writing. And I thought I could come back with a interesting story or something, some seed that I could write an essay about. So it really was more to feed the creative writing was the reason why I went. I didn't think like I would get that far, but I'm also very competitive, and I would never want to go in there and not do my very best. So, every day I went into the kitchen, I told myself, be better today than you were yesterday. And that's actually my core value that I have at both of my restaurants, as well as one of our core values. So I try to live that on a daily basis. And then, the competition was definitely a harrowing experience.
Yeah.
A lot of people ask, like, would you do that again? And, I say only if I knew I'd win, because it's definitely tough to do I think a competition that is, when you're kind of in this reality space where they they take your phones away, and they don't let you communicate home, and you're kind of sequestered in this hotel room. You don't know what the challenge will be the next day, what time they're going to wake you up. So it was a rough experience, but I feel like I've been through a lot in my life, so I just try to keep my head down and do the best that I can. And so I guess that's kind of what led me to the end and the victory.
Oh my gosh. Well, I love how you're like, I just did it for fun, and I kind of started winning, and I won. And oh my God, that is so crazy how you just completely stumbled into the competition. Like most people would think like, oh, I've been like wanting to be on the show for like ever. And you're like, I just kind of went there for a story. Oh my gosh. Well, I would completely read that book if you ever publish it. That sounds amazing. But I do want to follow up with you, because I think, like Helen's experiences, Ali's experiences, and your experiences of being stereotyped, like even if you don't see yourself as that way, as like an Asian woman, as a not able-bodied person, even if the world sees you that way, you at the end of the day have to overcome it. And I remember in one of your interviews, you said sometimes the hardest thing was my own self-doubt. It wasn't even the external factors. And I wanted to know how, if you had advice for, folks in the audience, and selfishly me, how you went above that and how you deal with it every day.
I think that when I was going through this, and I didn't know that there was a name for it at the time, but all through the competition, and even after having won, and then for years after that, and sometimes occasionally to this day, I do feel what is called imposter syndrome. And I think that many women who are, a minority, and especially like someone like me with a visual impairment or a disability, trying to pave their way in an industry that is predominantly male, that often requires vision, that definitely is tough. And people will definitely doubt you, and wonder how can it be? It's impossible. And so I think other people's ideas of what you can and cannot do start festering inside of you, and it affects how you start viewing yourself too. So I think, yes, I think was a lot of self-doubt, and sometimes I still feel like, oh, how am I able to do this? And it is rough, but my advice would be that, there is such a thing that other people out there feel the same thing, because I thought I was alone in feeling that. And then I realized that, hey, there's a term for it, and there's many people that feel this. So I know I'm not alone. So that means other people who have gone through this have, figured out a way to overcome it as well. So I know that if other people have survived it, then I can survive it. So I think first is to acknowledge it, that it exists within you, and then figure out how to process it. And then I think set measurable goals that help you be able to achieve it. And then when you start realizing that you're achieving these small goals, you start building that confidence. And I think that's what leads to kind of crushing the imposter syndrome.
Yeah, oh, that resonates with me a lot. And I think, for me personally, I think I'm naturally introverted and I'm naturally on the quiet side. I know you guys are like, what? You're moderating this. But I kind of felt like I wasn't allowed to be myself because that reinforces some stereotypes like, oh, Asian women are quiet or they're hardworking, but they're not leaders. And I remember feeling very self-conscious about that. But I feel like hearing what you're telling me, you can always find your own style of leadership. You can always find your own style of overcoming. And, you don't have to follow something so cookie cutter. So thank you so much for that, Christine. And this actually segues nicely to something I was curious about from Helen. You were pitching your idea to probably, an intimidating, board of investors, and, probably mostly male. I just wanted to know, how did you deal with those boardroom situations? And if you have any tips for us, hopefully maybe I'll find something one day and I'll have to command the room like you had in the past. Would love your perspective on it.
Well, I didn't have a board of directors. We were totally self-funded.
Oh my God.
You have to realize that my sons and I, the three of us, have no experience. No experience in the industry, no connection. Who would fund us except my husband, I guess. He believed in us. So I didn't have to deal with people at that level, but I had to deal with the factories. So my initial contact with the factory was that I spent an hour on the phone. The factory owner was trying to talk me out of doing it because we didn't have experience. And he was saying, if we do that, it will cost us a lot of money to develop the product and it may not sell because luggage, he thought we were doing luggage. Luggage doesn't sell as much now as it did 10 years ago. So I had to convince him that we knew what we were doing, even though I didn't really know. Because we'd never made a bag. So, when I convinced him, then I went to Hong Kong and China to the factory. My sons, two of them and I, three of us went there. And we spent quite a few weeks at the factory developing that bag. So it took 7 prototypes at the final. We actually went with a spec sheet that we got from a designer, and we felt really good. We had something, and when we took it there, they said it was so ugly.
Oh my God! They don't know fashion, Helen.
So we had to work from that, and then the end product was the OG that we have now. So it was an outcome of teamwork. And luckily, the factory owner there helped us along. He was just very impressed that we worked so hard. And he didn't know, he didn't know about our background. He would say, how are you working as a team? I said, well, Jen makes the bag, Derek sells the bag, and I manage the 2 of them.
You're the boss.
So that's how we started with the factory. But along the way, there are all kinds of problems,
For sure. And do you remember what you said to the factory guy to convince him, to get him from a no to a yes? Do you remember?
Yeah. I said, selling is different now. Marketing is different. There's social media. And my sons know how to sell on social media, even though we never did it. So I was telling him about social media, which he didn't know anything about. That is going to be the trend, which is exactly what happened. When we got the bag made, my approach was, let's try trade shows, because that's how you sell. In the old days, I thought like you go to a trade show, you get buyers to come and they will sell the product for you.
Mm-hmm.
Learned was that they come to a branded product. They don't sell the brand for you. So if your brand is unknown, people will just pass you by.
Yeah.
So that was the first lesson we learned. That was a mistake. We will never do that. And my son actually knew about social media. So he went that route.
Nice.
And that's
And
how
we have Lo and Sons. Yes, that's amazing. Honestly, power of social media is very real. And that actually reminds me of Ali. I love your story on how you got casted as Giggle McDimples for Toy Story 4. Could you please enlighten the audience of how that happened?
Yeah, totally. It was very random, I guess you could say. I remember I was in the car one day and I get this call from my agent and he was like, "Hey, what's up?" I was like, "Nothing." He's like, "Want to use you in this movie?" And I was like, "Oh, what movie?" And they're like, he's like, "It's Toy Story." And the way he said it was so just kind of, like he didn't know much, right? So I was just thinking, oh, it's so casual. Like it's, I'll probably have like one or two lines or whatever. And so the next day I get this, they send this letter to my agent's office and it is on this like thick fancy paper. I literally have it framed in my office. And like the Incredible Family is on the top, imprinted in the paper. And it was like, "Dear Miss Mucky, we would love to offer you this role of good." It's like this beautiful letter from Pixar, Jonas Rivera, who's one of the heads of Pixar now. And I was just like, is this a prank? Like what's happening? Because like you just get this letter in the mail from Pixar. And then the next day they sent this like box of goodies with like DVDs and stuff and Pixar hats. And I was like, what's happening? Like, I'm not really sure. And so then after that, I got in a call and with everyone, and they were like, "Yeah, we'd love, for you to be in this movie." And I literally said to them, I was like, "How did you guys find me? Like, what's happening?" And they're like, "We actually found you on a random YouTube video." And I was like, "What?" And they had said that their casting people had just been looking at, they look a lot on YouTube, people that do comedy or whatever, and they come across this one that I made, a 73 questions parody of the Vogue videos, and they're like, "We just saw that," and we're like, "That's Giggle McDimples." And I was like, this is the craziest story ever.
Oh my gosh.
I always like to tell this because that video, I literally was at a place where I didn't know when I just wasn't working. I couldn't book a job. I was auditioning. I was so frustrated. And I remember I woke up on a weekend. I was like, I just want to make something for fun. Like I want to be able to express myself. And so I had my dog. I had no budget. I just went out in my neighborhood and we just made one little thing on a Saturday. And we released it. It got like barely any views. And I was like, oh, it's a total failure. And 2 years later, it was one of those views was, one of the heads of Pixar. So that's why I always tell you guys, just make stuff no matter what it is, because you really don't know who it's going to touch or who it's going to affect or who those, views are going to be. So I don't know, that's my story of how I got the role.
Oh my gosh. And I love that story so much because you did something just for fun.
Yeah.
And just like how Christine just, tried out for MasterChef for fun, right? And it's just how that came down to be. And sometimes it just takes that like little courage or just the freedom to do, because I think a lot of us feel like everything we do has to amount to something. Everything we do, has to be productive. And I think if during COVID times, what a lot of us are realizing is that we're allowed to have fun. And when you just keep doing that and stay true to yourself, we probably won't get a letter from Pixar, but
you never know. Something better could happen.
You never know. No, seriously. And all that's to say, I think a lot of people are going to be inspired by these stories and do something of their own. And since this is Apex for Youth, where it's all about mentorship, I wanted to hear if you guys had a mentor growing up, and if you guys have any advice in maybe finding a mentor for some of the younger folks on the call who are like, how do I find a mentor? Would love your perspective on that. Christine, can anything come to mind for you?
I've gotten this question before, and sadly, like when I think about it, I don't really feel like I don't think I ever really had the courage growing up to reach out and find a mentor. I think that is something that, if I were to tell my younger self that I should do, but I didn't think about it. And I think just growing up was just like, it was such a battle already. Like, I think having like my mom sick when I was a teenager and then having her pass away and dealing with that. And so I think mentorship was like just something like completely far off in my brain. And it wasn't really something I thought I needed at the time. But I feel like looking back, I would tell myself, like, my younger self, like, look for someone that you can relate to, that you look up to, and that, feels like they can get behind you in what you do. It's almost, I would say, like looking for an agent nowadays too. Like, you have to look for someone that believes in what you do. So, I mean, I have advice for people that, are looking for mentors, but I personally myself did not have one growing up.
Oh man, I honestly think a lot of us feel the same way. How about you, Helen? Did you have a mentor?
I did not have a mentor, and I wish I had one. And I would recommend all these young people now to go find a mentor. I mean, it does take effort on your part. You have to reach out to get a mentor. If you don't, you sit back, they don't come to you. So, I mean, if I had a mentor, I probably would have reached some success earlier on, and not, my career would have been more linear than it had been. But in the end, it's okay.
Yeah, look where you are now. And now I'm sure you are a mentor to a lot of folks.
Yeah.
What about you, Allie?
Yeah, I mean, since we're at the Trailblazers women, I would say, I'm very lucky to have been raised by incredibly strong, brilliant women. My mother was essentially a single mother. And then my grandmother was the most influential person in my life. I have to say, she really helped raise me when my mom went back to work. My mom was an elementary school teacher. And, my grandma was the one who like really filled me with these stories of resilience and strength, because when she was 15 years old, she was sent to the Japanese American internment camps, where she was basically incarcerated for 3 years during her teenage years. And, to the very end, to the day she died, she never let that define her. And she would just always, she was just the strongest person I ever knew. And she filled me with these stories all throughout my whole life of what had happened to her and what happened to, the Japanese American people. And it's something that I continue to hold with me to this day. I mean, Asian Americans, as we know, we're not a monolith, and we have so many incredible stories of how we got here and our stories of being American people. And that's something that I think it really pushes me through to this day. So I guess in terms of mentorship, it really is just my familial history. And I would just say, in terms of finding a mentor, I guess my only advice is just that, each person's journey is uniquely their own. So when you do have a mentor, just take the pieces, like, from, even with this, like, take little things from me or Christine or, from all of us, but, pave the journey that is your own. Because like with all of our stories, and I feel like the Toy Story one, it's like, it's always in those moments when you're authentically being your truest, most genuine self and finding and paving your own path, that like the big, most amazing stuff happens. So that's what I would say about that.
Thanks, Allie. And, I heard you be emotional, and I feel really emotional about it too, about you talking about your grandmother. And, I'm so proud of everyone here, and we're blazing a trail, and I think there's positive movement, but we also know that there's, violence happening, and especially anti-Asian violence happening in the world right now. And there's shocking figures how, Asian American violence have increased up towards 1,900%. And I just wanted to acknowledge that at this time too, because it is something I think a lot of us are grieving over. We're angry. We don't really know how to process it. And I was curious, how have you guys been taking the news, and what some organizations maybe you recommended that really helped you understand the information, or where some of the audiences can look after this panel to just help out and learn more? Well, I know Apex for Youth have been posting a lot. I know it's a little heavy. I'm so sorry. Yeah, it's really heavy, but I just wanted to take some time to acknowledge it. And it's been a crazy time. And, I think just seeing some of the news, it does leave us quite speechless. But I know Apex for Youth have done an incredible job posting up action items and tagging people. And I know, Ali, you've been really vocal on social media as well, getting people to, learn more of how they can help, how to have productive conversations. Yeah, did you have any in mind, Ali, that maybe some of us can tune into afterwards?
Yeah, I know Gold House just released some amazing things. I know a lot of people are making like toolkits. I can post them on my Instagram too, but I feel like the main thing that I'm taking away from this is just that the attacks are going to our elderly community. And when I think about like my grandmother, when I think about my parents, it's truly, truly heartbreaking. And I feel like as a community, sometimes we've been a little bit scared to speak out. I am 100%. I've always been scared to speak out, and I never understood why. And it takes a lot of practice. But I think when we see, this happening to our most vulnerable members of our society, it's like, I feel compelled to speak out. There's, and to stand strong and united together as a community. We really need as many voices as we can, especially so the mainstream media will cover these events and let them be known, so that they just don't happen in vain. So I think as much as we can to create those resources. I know a lot of people don't know what to say a lot of times, and I'll be just sitting there and I don't know the perfect thing to say, but these times, I think it's less about being perfect and just about saying what's in your heart and making some noise. So
yeah. Thanks, Ali. Yeah, it's been tough. And we do need to save some time for Q&A, and I'm already seeing them filter through. But before we move on to that, I did want to ask this question. I do want to subvert this idea that behind every great man is a great woman, right? I really want to flip that and turn it around, and was curious to hear from each of you, who has that been your biggest fan, the person that really lifted you up during the hardest times, and if you wanted to shout them out during this panel. Christine, could you start us off?
So you're asking, behind every great woman is a great man?
Or whoever, I guess. Yeah, just wanted to subvert that notion, and maybe I can reframe it this way. What is the most important relationship in your life?
Sure. Well, obviously, we know my husband. Many of you have seen him on YouTube, and before we started this event, he was in here helping me make sure the lighting and the framing of the screen was okay, or the camera was okay. So, he and I are both like obviously life partners, because we are married, I think almost for 11 years now. Wow. Time flies. But we're also business partners. He's partners in both restaurants as well. So we are constantly together now, now that he still has a full-time job as well. So he's working remotely. So we share an office. We're back to back. So we're almost like tethered together at the hip. But, I think that we're each other's like best champions. We understand, we carry a conversation. We understand each other more than any other person, I think, in this world. And I think we like to challenge each other. So I think, he's always the guy behind the camera, and plays a supporting role. But we, many of us know that we wouldn't be where we would be without a team or someone supporting us. So it would have to be my husband, John. But I also just wanted to briefly touch upon what, your previous question too. I was still kind of processing it when you were saying it, but I think something, I don't know, I get my news mostly from NPR. I don't necessarily read a lot of blogs and stuff, and so I can't, Ali can speak much better to where, your resources or whatever you want to turn to find out like what you can do to make a difference in this. But I think for me, it starts from something like just representation. I think in this world, whether it's, being an entrepreneur, being in entertainment, in culinary, we need more representation of people that look like us, like what Ali was speaking about earlier, because when we become more of the mainstream and the norm, people, you know, people always kind of fear what they don't know or understand. And so I think when we start making ourselves more, I guess, in the light and being seen, then I think that's where we become more accepted. And then I think that's important. And it starts all the way back from, you know, just supporting Asian businesses, supporting, you know, Asian actors, supporting Asian chefs. I think anything that you can do to support the Asian community is important, because that's really, I think, will eventually down the line, like, change the view of how, you know, people are being treated. So
that's beautiful. Totally agree. Yeah.
Thanks, Christine. And Helen, could you let us know your most important relationship?
Well, my situation is a little ironical because I've spent so many years of my life supporting my husband's career. But what I found was when the time came for me to do anything significant, he was right there. I was director of a community health center back in my previous life, and I was working 24/7 almost. And he actually took the boys on vacation without me. So I felt so moved by that, because usually I'm the one who's doing everything. But when the time came for support, he was there for me. And of course, you know, with this venture, with this a business that we have, he was a big supporter. Like I said earlier, I don't know if I mentioned that earlier, you know, we refinanced the house to do the business, which is something that I would not recommend people to do. Do not refinance your house.
Don't do that.
But he did it because he believed in us. So, you know, he passed away in 2016. So I definitely do miss him. But the boys now are also there for me too. You know, they've been very supportive of my entrepreneurship. So it is important to have that support, you know.
That's awesome. Oh man. Well, okay. So we actually have a lot of questions coming our way. So I need to get to it to please the audience. And it's actually one for Ali. What advice do you have for Asian kids looking to break into acting?
Ooh, yes, Lisa. Hi. Great question. I would say, look, I mean, doing anything creative, it has to come from you. I mean, it has to come from passion. It has to come from something that you truly love. And if that's acting, if that's performing, I mean, that's what it was for me, because performing was a safe space for me. I was incredibly shy, and it was a place where it was an outlet where I could just really be myself. So I would say that, if acting is 100% what you want to do, then put your whole heart into it. Do not be afraid to be 100% you. I mean, now we have the luxury of representation where you can be and play any roles that you want. You're not limited in the way that I was, where I'm like, I have to do an accent, and that's all I can do. It's really like you have control of your destiny. And I think that's the most beautiful and exciting thing. And we have social media where you guys can create. Seriously, if you take anything from me today, like, just continue to create your own stuff. Don't wait for anyone to give you the green light. Don't wait for anyone to cast you in something, because now we're seeing more and more that even these big studios are looking to YouTube, are looking to find, these next up and comer, or whatever they may be. So seriously, just create, and because that's going to be your practice too. So.
Nice. Oh my gosh. Thanks, Ali. And thanks, Lisa, for that question. We have another one that says, how did your education help you become such great entrepreneurs? And I actually want to throw that to Christine, because you studied creative writing, and you were mentioning that, that is your passion as well, and your cooking kind of intersect. Can you tell us about how that education may have really propelled you?
Yeah, I kind of want to rewind even more, because my undergraduate studies, so I got my bachelor's degree in business.
Oh.
And I think that my fundamental the foundation of my education started there. So I learned that definitely helps with entrepreneurship, and just, I think, even to navigate the world and dealing with like clients, dealing with guests, dealing with staff. So my education started with a business degree. And then I think, when my world got turned upside down and I started losing my vision, I was like, okay, I don't want, to do corporate anymore. I just want to follow my heart and do creative writing. So then I decided to do creative writing. And I think with that, what I learned actually in there was, yes, I mean, I learned how to use words and to create art, but what I learned about myself, along with being on a show like MasterChef and competing, is that I needed to trust my gut more and have more confidence in my ability. I too, like Allie, very shy when I was young. I said naturally I'm an introvert. I don't like speaking out in class for fear of sounding stupid. And I think it was just really, I just had to kind of grow into my own skin and realize that, it's almost sometimes like you just kind of have to fake it till you make it. And, you start noticing that when you start using your voice that, you don't sound so stupid. And, people will say, that was, a good point that you made in class or whatever. So I feel like for me, my education in creative writing and in the culinary field was really about not just honing my skills in those areas, but much more so in a broader perspective was building that confidence to be more assertive and learn how to be a leader. Because now, I have 2 restaurants with staff at both. So constantly, I do have to be a leader in those aspects. And I think all of that together kind of formulates like a certain way of thinking for me to be able to be a strong leader for everyone.
Nice. Thanks, Christine. And Dr. Lowe, PhD in the house. Could you let us know how your education helped you with your entrepreneurship?
Right. I mean, what does PhD have to do with entrepreneurship? Not an MBA. If I had an MBA, that's more reasonable. But the interesting thing about a PhD is that you learn to be analytical, get analytical skills. And I think that that's what helped us, because I always approached the business looking at our data, and I was always very analytical about our situation. So that helped. And also being in social welfare, you develop this empathy. As I said, we work as a family, 2 generations. And if I did not practice empathy, I could not work with my sons because we're so different, 2 generations, So in a sense, I was able to bring my education into the entrepreneurship that we have. And it's funny sometimes in life, you can put things together. You can what should I say? Connect the dots, right? You would think that they're so different, but they are connected, and this is how it worked for me.
Absolutely, that's awesome, Helen. Thank you for that, and I love how your perspective, like you're continually connecting the dots, like through multiple generations, and it's so awesome to see. And we had another question around mentorship. Even though none of you had specific mentors, do you mentor anyone? Do any of you mentor anyone? From Shin.
I would say that the Asian American Girl Club community, I consider them like all my little babies.
Little sisters.
All over the world. And, I don't think I'm, their mentor, but I do believe that it's such a beautiful community. And, there's so much that comes with community, so so much basically just so much beautifulness that happens in the community. And, we all need it. There's so much that can happen when you feel like you have that kind of unblinding, unwavering support, especially from people that look like you. And I just think, I don't know, just hearing all of you speak is awesome to hear all of our unique journeys and kind of how similar they are. And even though like the Trailblazers event, women at the forefront, it's so cool that, like, especially when we all like come together and work together, and just how incredibly strong and resilient we are. It's really cool. I'm super inspired by all of you.
Yeah, and I know there are a lot of mentees watching this, and we really hope these stories inspire you guys to blaze your own trail. We're not going to stop here. We want to continue to build, and these women have thrown down so many walls, and it's up to you guys, the children, to carry on the torch and continue on, right? Okay, so we're actually almost at time. But before we close off, number one, thank you all for your stories and your time. And curious to know, what are you guys all working on where we can follow you and continue to support you? Would love to know how we can continue the conversation. Helen, would you like to start?
Well, I have been promoted to CGO.
Oh.
Chief Grandmother Officer.
Oh my gosh. That's the ultimate promotion, beyond CEO. That's CGO. That's the dream.
but I'm still on the board, and I would like to do more nonprofit work, which is more focused. I think what we do now is we blend our profit with social impact work. But I think, I would like to be more focused on the nonprofit.
Awesome. Yeah, and I forgot to mention, I think what was so amazing about Low & Sons was during the BLM movement, you guys actually put together a guide of like, hey, here are the steps that you can take to support the movement. And for that have to come from Low & Sons, that meant a lot, I think, for the community and, your history with social justice. Thank you for that. And can you give us a bit of the backstory on why you posted that?
Well, actually, when that happened, we had all our staff together, and everyone was very involved and very upset about what was happening. And we had a committee, a small group of people who put it all together, and we all agreed that that's the position we want to take. So our staff were all very connected, very involved, and that's how it started. Of course, right now we're down to a skeleton staff with the economy the way it has gone. So we're just basically doing the basic work that needs to be done. But our hearts are still there. Yeah.
Thanks, Helen. Christine, what are you working on? How can we keep up with you?
So I'm on social media, The Blind Cook. That's for my Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And I have 2 restaurants. They're in Houston. So once people are traveling in, please come. The first one's called The Blind Goat. The second one is called Xin Jiao, which means hello in Vietnamese. And a little known thing that, some people know because I have posted on social media before, but I am in the middle of shooting a documentary about my life story. So it's currently an independent project. It's been quite a long process because, at first we thought the narrative arc was going to be about me opening The Blind Goat and then kind of taking the backstory of how I got into cooking and what my relationship was like with my mom and how, she kind of was the origin story of why I got into food. And then this whole COVID thing happened. So then it kind of turned to, okay, how does Christine navigate like having one restaurant during COVID and then needing to open another one because she'd already signed the lease.
Oh my gosh.
She owes back rent. And then, at the same time with COVID, like living with an autoimmune condition, and how does she navigate that? And so and then we couldn't have the directors in our house because everyone was kind of locked down at home. So then John became the camera operator slash like light person slash capper
Sweet John.
drip slash whatever. So it's kind of been dragged out a little bit more, but now I think our original director, he's like finding the story of it, and so we just shot like the sizzle reel, and then so I'm excited about that. Like it'll probably still be a while before like the whole thing is like finished, and we're probably eventually going to shop the project around, but I'm excited about that. And like what I said, we should support representation. So I'm excited to share my life story with the world in the film.
Oh my gosh, that sounds amazing. And I'm like sweating this, hearing you describe everything that happens. So I feel like it's going to be like this dramatic, crazy documentary. I can't wait. Oh. Ali, what are you working on, and where can we see you next on screen?
Oh, yes. Well, yeah, you can follow me at Ali Maki on Instagram and Twitter and all the good stuff. And yeah, I mean, in the spirit of tonight, I mean, I'm just starting to create and develop a lot of my own shows and stuff. So that's very exciting. It's a brand new kind of journey for me, which has been really fun in quarantine to kind of like sit down and write and have some writing sessions over Zoom and stuff. So that'll be really fun, and keep you guys posted on that. But yeah, alongside with that, just really, hitting the pavement with Asian Man Girl Club. I mean, so many exciting things coming up, starting with this collaboration with Apex, which has been unbelievable and so exciting and so near and dear to my heart. But so much coming up with that. I mean, every day we're just like, just brainstorming all different ways to bring, new fun stuff coming to life. And something actually in the spirit of mentorship, we're doing some mentorship programs coming up too. So that'll be really fun. But yeah, just so many things, I don't know, but always all the things.
all the things. That's so great to hear, and I just can't wait to see what you guys continue to accomplish. And you guys really inspire me, and I know the audience is inspired too. So thank you, Ali, Christine, and Helen, for spending this hour with us and dropping your knowledge, especially during this crazy and uncertain time. This was such an energizing and vibrant event, and I think we can take away a lot from this. And especially thank you to the mentees who are logging in, the audience who bought tickets, of course, our sponsors, Lakewood Capital, Kramer Levin, General Atlantic, City Private Bank, Brevet Capital, Ardea, Zena, Facebook, Braze. Just want to reinforce that all of us together raise over $50,000. That's incredible. During COVID times, we were able to raise that much for Apex for You, so we can continue this amazing partnership. Just really thankful to be here. And I just wanted to close the show on that note. Everybody, wash your hands, stay safe, and hopefully we can catch all of you guys in person soon. So thank you so much for coming to this event, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.